Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are deep diving into the fate of a career path that has, really underpinned global business for decades. The ABAP developer. We've got some source material here that makes a really compelling case that this traditional title is, well, it's obsolete, replaced by the SAP developer. And we're looking at an evolution that is so rapid, it's basically being defined by what skills you absolutely must have by 2026. Our mission today is to give you the cheat sheet on this. We're extracting the critical shifts in technology, methodology, and strategic focus that will prevent your skill set from hitting a wall.
Right. And if we look at the starting point, the traditional identity, the ABAPM developer was an expert in a very comfortable, contained world. Their focus was almost exclusively on the monolithic SAP ERP system. Think of it like a single massive skyscraper of functionality. And their tools were all proprietary. So, extending the core with custom code, writing these complex reports, maybe designing screens in the SAP GUI.
And linking systems.
Yes, linking to other systems using these workhorses like RFC and IDOC.
Okay, wait, let's just pause on that jargon for a second for our listener. When you say RFC and IDOC, what were those workhorses really doing?
Good question. So think of them as the standard, very robust, but often quite rigid ways to link SAP to other systems. And RFC is a remote function call.
So like a procedure call, but between machines.
Exactly. And IDOCs, or intermediate documents, were the standardized message format for business data. Things like invoices, purchase orders,
Got it.
They were effective for sure, but they really locked you tightly into that proprietary SAP ecosystem.
And the focus was always on modifications, right? Like, I need to add a button to this standard transaction screen.
Yeah.
It was all about tweaking that monolith. So given how stable that all was, why the violent shift? What specific technologies or architectural demands drove this move away from an ABAP-only world?
The driver is, it's modernization, it's the cloud. But the key thing to get your head around is that this shift was not a clean break.
And that's the creeping change our sources really highlight.
Right.
Even when S/4HANA first landed, a lot of developers thought, oh, I'll just continue coding the way I always have.
They did, because the environment was technically the same, ABAP still ran the core.
The old tools still work.
Correct. The old tools and methodologies, they still functioned, at least for a while. But the first real crack in that monolith was Fiori. Fiori actually existed back in the old ECC era, but it was often treated as this optional, nice-to-have overlay.
Right.
When a company wanted an attractive, maybe external-facing application for, say, HR or time tracking, the ABAP developer's role was often minimized.
So the back-end team was basically just running the data pipes for the fancy front end.
Exactly that. The ABAP developer's job was typically to create what's called an SEW service, an SAP gateway service, just to expose the data that was needed.
Yeah.
The whole complex UI layer, the Fiori front end, that was handled by a specialist, often using completely different languages.
And to the ABAP colleague, that Fiori UI was just a black box.
A total black box. They couldn't debug it. They couldn't easily change the interface.
That sounds like a major knowledge gap. So how is the new SAP developer supposed to suddenly master both the deep back end and this complex front end? That's two jogs, isn't it?
It feels like it.
But before we get to the tools, let's talk infrastructure, because this takes us to BTP, the Business Technology Platform.
ETP it's non-negotiable now.
Yeah.
If the S/4HANA system is that skyscraper we talked about, then BTP is the foundational cloud infrastructure and all the specialized services that surround it. It houses various cloud services, many of which are designed to replace or abstract the traditional on-premise services. Let's take PDF form generation as an example.
Okay.
Traditionally, you'd use an on-premise Adobe Document Services, or ADS, instance. Now, the replacement might be the Cloud ADS service running in BTP. And what's fascinating here, and what the new developer has to understand, is the architectural cost.
The cost implication. How so?
It's a massive evaluation. You're moving from a local batch-oriented process where the cost is basically fixed by your server hardware,
Right.
to a metered cloud service where you pay per transaction. So if a company generates, say, 1 million invoices a month, Cloud ADS might turn a $1,000 internal process into a $100,000 operational expense.
Wow.
Or it might not even handle the sheer volume. That calculation, that architectural decision, is now something the SAP developer has to advise on. It's not just coding anymore, it's cost analysis.
That is a huge shift in responsibility, and that need to mix and match internal processes with these metered cloud services. That defines composable ERP, doesn't it?
Precisely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the monolithic ERP is gone. It's become a composable ERP. So think of the new S/4HANA Core not as the whole skyscraper, but as the foundational financial district of a city.
Okay, I like that analogy.
And other specialized buildings, like SuccessFactors for HR or Ariba for purchasing, they're separate, cloud-based applications built on non-ABP languages. And these applications, they rely on the core master data, which creates this component distribution.
So parts of a single business process are now spread out.
Exactly. Hiring a new employee or processing a vendor invoice that's now spread across maybe 3 different systems. BTP middleware, the SuccessFactors Cloud, and the on-premise S4 core. The traditional ABAP developer focused only on that core system just couldn't track that process end to end. The SAP developer must.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because that kind of distribution requires a strict new set of rules to stop the whole thing from collapsing into chaos. Let's talk about Clean Core. The name, it sounds like some kind of software optimization tool, but it's really a philosophy.
It is not a technology. It's the new constitution for your SAP system. Clean Core is a collection of these non-negotiable concepts that govern everything: extensibility, data, integration, processes, operations. For the developer, it's the framework that explicitly forbids the old way of doing things.
So no more modifying standard SAP code directly.
Absolutely not.
So if the old way was just adding a button right inside the standard transaction, what does Clean Core force us to do instead?
It forces a decision, an architectural decision on the extensibility platform. And you have 3 primary choices now. You can use what's called key user extensibility. These are low-code tools for simple changes, like adding a field.
Okay, option 1.
Option 2 is you implement on-stack with ABAP Cloud, which means writing modern, decoupled ABAP here that strictly uses APIs within the core S4 system.
And the third.
Or you implement side-by-side in BTP, where your code runs entirely separately and it just accesses the S4 data securely through services. Clean Core basically standardizes the path forward, restricting older tech and really dictating that move to Fiori.
So the developer's first job isn't even coding anymore. It's architecture. It's deciding which of those 3 platforms to use. And they need a whole new tool belt just to manage those options. So let's look at the IDE landscape. It is not the cozy world of SE80 anymore, is it?
Absolutely not. I mean, SE80 is still there for legacy stuff and maintenance tasks like handling SBAU transports. But the tool landscape has exploded. It has not shrunk. Today, the development environment is a multi-tool setup. You might spend your morning in the classic SAP GUI for those maintenance checks.
Okay.
Then you switch over to Eclipse for your core ABAP application development. That's where the ABAP development tools, the ADT, live. Then you might need to generate the UI with BISS, the Business Application Studio, which is SAP's cloud-based IDE. It's fundamentally based on VS Code.
And that's just the coding tools. What about the non-coding parts?
Right. So in the afternoon, you could be adjusting business logic in SAP Build Process Automation, which is a low-code environment for workflows. All your code is now backed up and versioned in Git, which is, completely foreign to many traditional ABAPers.
A whole new world.
And finally, deployment isn't just simple transports anymore. It's orchestrated through tools like Cloud ALM, Application Lifecycle Management. The key takeaway for you, the learner, is that flexibility and comfort across multiple non-SAP proprietary tools are now. They're just essential.
Given that, that immense expansion of skills, from a cost accountant to an architect to a full-stack developer managing 5 different tools, it seems impossible to remain just an ABAP developer.
That is the ultimate conclusion of our sources. Because of the required mastery of this entire ecosystem, the role must now be formally referred to as the SAP developer.
Okay, so the core mission is still extension, but the whole methodology shifts from, say, internal modification to external integration. We're moving from simple reports to modern RAP applications, and workflows are now designed specifically to connect multiple cloud and on-prem components.
The emphasis shifts from writing code inside the system to writing code around the system, and our sources are very clear on this. Relying only on ABAP, your reliable old hammer, is it's insufficient. The SAP developer needs mastery over 6 critical new toolbox components.
6. Okay, let's break them down.
First, key user extensibility. This is critical because it's the clean core compliant way to handle simple changes. This means using low-code tools to extend the standard, implementing Beatty's business add-ins, or creating customer-specific CDS views via Fiori apps.
So the skill here is knowing when to use the tool versus when you actually have to write code.
Precisely. That handles the simple tweaks.
What about the bigger cross-system processes?
That brings us to number 2, workflow. The skill needed here is modeling complex business processes using tools like SAP Build Process Automation. And crucially, this often demands using JavaScript.
JavaScript in SAP context.
Yes, to introduce custom logic or transformation steps. It's what allows you to seamlessly connect a cloud solution like Ariba back to the on-premise S4 system.
And connecting those distributed systems securely. That's where the cloud complexity really hits, I imagine.
Which leads to number 3, destinations. This is a pure architectural skill. The SAP developer has to set up, maintain, and truly understand the destination service in BTP.
Okay, and what does that service do?
It acts as the secure, authenticated bridge. It's what allows a cloud application to reliably and safely consume services that are running on an on-premise S4 system. It's the difference between exposed public code and a secure, managed handshake.
Got it. Okay, moving to the front end, you mentioned Fiori Elements earlier as a big time saver.
That's number 4, Fiori Elements. This is essential for efficiency. While you can build a Fiori Freestyle app, a totally unique UI from scratch, it costs a lot of time and money.
Right.
Fiori Elements allows the application UI to be generated based on annotations that you add directly to your ABAP code.
So using the ABAP RESTful Application Programming Model, or RAP?
Exactly. This just accelerates your time to production massively for standard apps, and it's a mandatory skill to avoid unnecessary front-end development overhead.
And all this communication, internal and external, it must rely on new standards beyond the old RFCs.
Which brings us to number 5, web. Just understanding fundamental web communication principles is foundational. Specifically, REST representational state transfer, which is all based on HTTP. The developer has to understand how resources are accessed, how data is serialized, usually as JSON, and just how distributed systems talk to each other on a network layer. This is the global standard now.
Okay, and the last one.
And finally, number 6, integration. We have to move far beyond simple point-to-point RFC connections. The SAP developer needs to manage the entire integration stack, understanding interfaces, middleware solutions like CPI, security protocols.
It's pure system architecture.
It is, determining which tool and which protocol is right for any given cross-system scenario.
Looking ahead then, with all this new infrastructure, it raises a really core question. Is ABA still relevant, or is it on its way out?
Our sources are very clear on this. ABA remains absolutely central.
That's reassuring for a lot of people listening.
It is. It's still the business programming language for extending these systems, and it's used heavily in the cloud via ABA Cloud. So investing time in deepening your ABA skills is still fundamentally justified. But that language now has to be supplemented. As we mentioned, you will need JavaScript proficiency. Not deep mastery, maybe, but enough to perform script tasks and process automation, or to read and debug the generated code in a Fiori Elements app.
And I imagine AI tools can help here.
For sure. You'll use AI tools like GitHub Copilot or others to help you understand unfamiliar JavaScript syntax or find solutions quickly. But, and this is a big but, the developer is ultimately and legally responsible for the security and quality of that final code.
And at the front end, that shift seems complete. Fiori is the official new UI. So since new applications are annotation-driven using RAP, it sounds like the idea of having strictly separate ABAP and Fiori developer roles is becoming wasteful.
That's the logical outcome. For most standard business apps, Fiori Elements, driven by those RAP annotations, it generates 80 to 90% of the UI you need. And since the vast majority of the logic and data modeling is still in ABE, it just doesn't make economic sense anymore to strictly separate those roles. Fiori Elements is being pulled fully into the SAP Developers Toolkit.
This also must dramatically affect how partners deliver software. It changes the whole add-on ecosystem.
Oh, massively. Previously, partners struggled so much to support, a dozen different versions of outdated on-premise releases. Now they can offer their products as SaaS solutions via the ABAP environment in the cloud. This forces development onto the latest tech stack. It ensures clean core compliance.
And it reduces their support burden.
Hugely. As long as they use those standardized public interfaces, it's professionalizing the entire third-party software market.
Okay, so we've arrived at the big existential question for our listener. Where should they focus their limited time and budget? Should the SAP developer learn CAP and RAP?
This is a critical decision. It really is, because the answer pretty much determines their specialization for the next few years. The SAP developer should aim to master one of the two models and be able to implement it professionally.
Okay, so just to recap. CAP, the Cloud Application Programming Model, uses JavaScript, or Java, and RAP, the ABAP RESTful Application Programming Model, uses ABA.
That's it.
So why not learn both? Why not be a jack of all trades?
Because professional development demands really deep skills and concepts that go far beyond just basic coding. We're talking about software architecture, testability, performance, clean code practices, maintainability, security.
All the utilities.
All the utilities. And those quality attributes, the professional standard, they usually apply best to one language and one dedicated framework. Staying current in multiple rapidly evolving methodologies like RAP and CIP it's just too difficult to fit into a normal workday while you're also learning BTP, destinations, and clean core rules.
So the recommendation is to pick a lane.
The professional recommendation is clear. Focus deeply on one stack, either ABAP or Node.js CAP, to ensure you can deliver truly professional, enterprise-grade software.
So what does this all mean? It seems the role of the ABAP developer is in a profound, and I guess, terminal transformation. It's been driven by the cloud BTP, composable ERP, and it's governed by these strict architectural rules of clean core. This transformation just necessitates adopting a vast new toolbox, moving far beyond the SAP GUI, and embracing this flexible, multi-tool IDE landscape. The traditional ABAP developer, they still exist today, but their utility is going to decline and decline rapidly over the next few years as companies finally catch up and migrate.
And the developer's path now requires some really intense consideration and proactive action. You need to decide where your specialization is going to lie, RAP or CAP, pure cloud development, or focused S4 on-premise maintenance. And then critically, you have to identify the specific tools like destinations or Fiori elements and the supporting languages like JavaScript that you currently lack, that architectural self-assessment. That's your next deep dive.